What's up, everyone? It's your boy Steven, and welcome to DareToCapture. In today's video, I'm going to give you 6 tips on how you can improve your composition skills, thus improving your photography skills. Now, each of these things are probably going to seem like they're very simple and easy to do, but sometimes it's the little things and the stuff you're doing that can make the biggest difference. Composition to begin with is something that's not easy, and a lot of people struggle with it, thus their photography struggles a little bit. So if you're able to keep the following tips in mind, I guarantee that your photography will improve and you're gonna be able to enjoy your photography much more. My first tip for you is that you need to be able to see into the future. Now, by this I mean you don't need to be psychic, you don't need to be able to actually see the future or predict the future, but you need to have some sort of vision of what you want your photography to look like. You need to have some sort of vision of what you want all of your pictures to look like after you take them. If you don't have a vision of what you want your picture to look like, then you're gonna go into every photo shoot in the dark and you're not gonna know exactly what you want. If you don't know what you want beforehand, then how are you gonna know what you want as you're taking your photo? Now, I'm not saying you always have to have an idea of what you want your photos to look like, but when you do go into some sort of photo shoot knowing exactly what you want, you're gonna get the photo you want much easier. The whole task of getting a photo is gonna be a lot easier in the end. Now, when you have that vision in your head, more than likely, the photo that you get in the end isn't gonna be exactly how you picture it, but it's okay to make small tweaks here and there to make sure you still get a good photo in the end. At least when you have some sort of vision in your head before you take your photos, you know you're not gonna be starting from zero. There's gonna be some sort of starting point that gets you ahead of people that don't have a starting point to begin with. And when you have that starting point, things are gonna seem much smoother, things are gonna go much faster, and you're probably gonna get a great photo faster than somebody that doesn't go into a photo shoot having some sort of vision for what they want. Now, my second tip is to not overcomplicate things. When you make things complicated for your compositions, then everything just starts to not make sense. I understand wanting to have the perfect composition and feeling like you need to keep adding things into your composition to make it look better. So if you add one thing here, then you add another thing over here, then you add another thing over here, you think that you're adding to the composition, thus making it better. But in the end, you could be making things much more complicated and you can lose the whole idea of what your composition is supposed to be. Sometimes your best option is just to keep things simple. You don't need to overcomplicate things. Sometimes the best compositions are the ones that are very simple and to the point. You want your composition to add to your photo and not take away from it. And when you have too many things in your composition, thus making it a little complicated, overcomplicated, you're gonna be taking away from what you want your photo to be. You want your photo to have some sort of message. So when you have too many things in your composition, you're gonna be taking away from that overall message and mood that you're trying to convey. The best photos that you see probably convey some sort of emotion within you. So that goes along with the composition because everything that is in the composition is going to help add to the mood that is trying to be conveyed within that photo. When you have 50 million different elements in your photo, you're more than likely taking away from the overall mood of the photo that you're trying to get. And when you do this, you're complicating things, you're making things much more complicated for the viewer, and everyone's just going to be confused about what you're trying to get out of the photo. It still might look good, but because the composition is a little complicated, things just don't really reach the viewer and they're just gonna be confused in the end. So with your photos, you wanna make sure you have some sort of clear message. And a clear message is conveyed much easier when you don't have a composition that's completely overcomplicated and causing too much confusion for the viewer. And if you're somebody that feels as though they can get rid of certain things in the composition and the editing process, you might be able to, but that only makes your job much harder. Why make your job much harder when you can make it easier to begin with before you even get to the editing process? So remember, your composition doesn't have to be overly complicated for you to have a great composition. Sometimes the best compositions are very simple and they're straight to the point, and that's what you should keep in mind when you're getting your photos. You don't want to overcomplicate things because overcomplicating things only makes things harder for the viewer, and when you make things harder for the viewer, they're just going to be confused and become disinterested in the end. Now, my third tip that you can use to improve your compositional skills and thus improving your photography skills is you need to make sure you have a sense of balance in your compositions. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to have things perfect on both sides of the photo so that everything is very symmetrical. You just need to make sure that not too much stands out on one side and too much stands out on the other side. So for example, if you look at the composition I have right now, I have almost equal things on both sides. There's not too much standing out on one side and not too much standing out on the other side. Everything has a nice balance to it. Even though it is relatively symmetrical, there's still a good balance that is aesthetically pleasing to the eyes. If within your photos you have too much of an imbalance, then that probably means there's going to be a lot of dead space, and when you have a lot of dead space, it just looks like a blank area where there's nothing there. Now, when you have that dead space, it's not going to be as appealing as it would be if you had that dead space filled with something. So for example, if you have a landscape photo, but you have a big blue sky, but the sky has no clouds or anything in it, that photo is not going to be as appealing as it would if that same photo had clouds in it. The little things like that fill in a little bit of dead space, create a little more balance within your photos, makes your photo look that much better. Now, I'm not saying you can't have an imbalance in your photos, because most of the time your photos aren't going to be perfectly balanced on both sides anyway. But the more balance you can have on both sides, is going to make things look that much better for you in the end. And this also depends on what type of photo you're trying to get. So sometimes your photos are going to call for you to have a massive imbalance on one side than the other. The reason why having a sense of balance in your photos works better is because photos that have a good balance to them have a much better flow overall. So when your eyes are jumping all over the photo, your eyes aren't getting confused and jumbled because there's too much of an imbalance and they feel like they're missing something. The balance you're trying to get also depends on the mood you're trying to convey. So keep all of this in mind when you're trying to set up the perfect composition, because when you have that sense of balance, things are going to be much better. Now, my fourth tip to help your compositions is going to be to look for patterns. As humans, we love to see patterns in the photos that we see. We're naturally looking for patterns everywhere we go. So if you can have some sort of pattern within your photo and your composition, that's only going to make it more appealing to the viewer. When we see something that has patterns in it, we see it as there's much less chaos, things are flowing much better, and it's much more appealing to us when we see that. And when you have something that's that appealing, then you're not going to want to take your eyes away from it. And I believe with patterns, this kind of ties into keeping things simple, because when there's a pattern, you know there's much less chaos. Even if the pattern has a lot going on, it's a pattern, so we know there's a nice flow to what we're looking at. And our eyes aren't having to struggle to try and figure out exactly what's going on in the photo. When there's less chaos in your photo, there's much less panic, and when there's much less panic, your audience is going to view your photos as just being much better in general. My fifth tip for you all to improve your composition is to make sure you have a separation with all of your subjects. Now, with a lot of photos that you're taking, there's going to be more than one subject within your composition. When there's multiple subjects, then you need to make sure that you have some sort of separation within these subjects. If your subjects are too jumbled together, then they're going to get muddied and you're not going to be able to tell exactly what the subject is for your photo. So again, if you look at my composition in this frame right now, there is a clear separation of every element that's in it. Too many times I've seen photos where all of the subjects are way too close together, there's no separation within the subjects, and when there's no separation between those subjects, you can't really tell what the photo is of. You can't really tell what the photo is about. You're not sure what that photo is trying to convey because everything is too close together. You want to make sure that there's a clear distinction between everything that's going on within your photo. There's almost no point in having all of your subjects just very close together so that you can't tell exactly what's going on within your photo. Why are you going to have a photo when you can't tell exactly what's going on? That's only going to confuse your audience, and when you confuse your audience, they're going to be turned off by what you're trying to present to them. Having that clear separation between your subjects is going to give your photo much more clarity, and when there's much more clarity, there's going to be a lot less possible confusion that could go on from the audience that's actually viewing your photo. Now, my last tip on how you can improve your compositions, thus improving your photography skills, is to draw the viewer's eyes. You can make your compositions so that your viewer's eyes are drawn to a specific point in that photo. Now this is something that isn't always easy because the elements in your photo won't always work with you in this way, but if you can get all the elements in your photo to point to a specific area on your photo, then you're going to be able to draw the viewer's eyes to a certain area, and that's going to make your composition that much better. So for example, there's a term in photography called leading lines. Leading lines are things in your composition that draw the eyes to a specific point in that photo. So for example, if you take a picture in the middle of a long empty road, when you look at that photo, your eyes are going to be drawn down the road because that's where the leading lines lead you. The leading lines lead you all the way down that road. Your eyes naturally follow where the road is going. Now, if you're able to use leading lines or draw your viewer's eyes to a very specific point in your photo, and you want that specific point to be the main subject of your photo, using this to your advantage is going to be good because it's going to put much more emphasis on the subject that you want to have emphasis on, and again, there's going to be much less confusion for your viewers, and everything's going to look that much better in the end. Alright, so when it comes to composition, it's very important to remember that everyone is going to struggle with it at some point. It doesn't matter what level they're at, they're going to struggle with it at some point. So if you can help it, try not to get frustrated when you're setting up your composition, because that's only going to set you back a little further. However, once you get really good at setting up a composition, your life's going to become infinitely easier and you're going to see your photography skills almost skyrocket. So if you want to vastly improve your photography skills, you need to make sure that you keep in mind the tips that I mentioned, and I'll be sure to put those in the description below. Now, if this is a video you thoroughly enjoyed watching, be sure to hit that like button. If you have any other compositional tips or tips you feel I may have missed that can help people improve their photography, be sure to leave a comment below. And if you're looking forward to many more Dare to Capture videos in the near future, be sure to hit that subscribe button. And on that note, I'm Steven. Catch you in the next one. Peace.